Apple just ruined the brand new M1 iPad Pros for both myself and a lot of people out there. And for those of you guys that watch WWDC like I did and were really disappointed, there's also a couple very sneaky things that they included that makes me wonder, will this ever be a laptop replacement? So let's go ahead and talk about what they have changed and also what they haven't, and why this iPad really doesn't make any sense for me anymore. And with that, why a lot of people are saying they are now going to be returning their M1 iPad Pro. Now, the M1 iPad Pro is arguably the biggest leap in iPads ever. Obviously, it is the best iPad ever made, but the jump that we got with this new M1 chip added is just mind-blowing. It completely shocked us when Apple announced it in multiple ways, but the biggest one was just that M1 chip that is designed for their desktops. Now, because these tablets are so incredibly thin, we for sure thought that the performance is not going to come anywhere near an M1 MacBook Pro, and that they are gonna thermal throttle quite a bit. So we gave you guys estimates on the performance, but when we actually got them in and we tested it, we were just shocked by how well they performed and how little thermal throttling there was in such a thin chassis. And since they're using the M1 chip, of course you have 8 gigs of RAM base, which is crazy for a tablet already, at least an iPad, and up to 16 gigs at the high end, and up to 2 terabytes of SSD that is extremely fast, way faster than before. And you can get all of that even on the 11-inch, which comes at a base price of just $800. And on top of that, you factor in having a really nice, sharp, colorful display, great quad speakers that this one sounds actually better than the MacBook Pros. You add in an awesome front camera. We have rear cameras in the back, which you don't get on a MacBook. You can use the Apple Pencil as well. And the base 600 nits of brightness are about 100 to 200 nits brighter than a MacBook, not even including the XDR display. And then you grab the XDR display in the larger model right here, where that screen is just so amazing when you're watching movies with deep blacks. It just looks stunningly good. So you take all of that, you add that value, then you get yourself a Magic Keyboard that works incredibly well, although it is expensive. Or with that, now you can get something like this bridge keyboard that just came in, a $250 for this larger model, $100 less than Apple's option, and it literally turns it into something that looks like a MacBook. Bam, look at that right there. This has so many people excited about the fact that they can get one device, one iPad, and now have insane performance of M1 in an iPad with Thunderbolt built in, and they can have all those extra features and benefits of an iPad that you can't get in a MacBook. Now is a time to ditch macOS and a MacBook and just go for an all-in-one device. Well, unfortunately, that didn't happen. If you guys watched our performance comparison in things like Adobe Rush, it actually exported it slower than the older iPad Pro. And then all the other issues that people had with iPadOS, such as Files app being very limited. We had issues with Thunderbolt not being able to connect properly. Some of our drives didn't connect. Other ones that did connect were much slower than on a MacBook Pro. We also found no differences at all between 8 gigabytes and 16 gigabytes of RAM on the iPad Pro. And we did a bunch of different exporting tests, productivity tests. We even opened up tons of apps and there was no difference at all. In fact, the 16 gigabyte version closed an app earlier than the 8 gig version, so that was a shocker. And then we found out that the iPadOS actually has a limit of 5 gigs per app, so it's literally a hard cut. All of those issues and limitations had a lot of reviewers, including us, kind of just scratching our head saying, yeah, this thing is insane. This is a perfect laptop replacement, has the performance, but the software is just so limiting, and we're not really getting anything new. And I said that, when was the last time your iPad Pro was too slow, given the things you could do on it, the older 2018 version even, where you say, hey, I need it to be faster. It's all software limited. And all of us were saying, wait for WWDC, wait for Apple to step up, wait for us to get pro apps such as Xcode and Final Cut. Maybe we're gonna get new updates for the Files app to make it a lot more usable like an actual Mac. And in reality, Apple didn't give it to us, and I think the iPadOS portion was probably one of the biggest disappointments out of the whole show. Now, yes, there are a couple legitimate cool features that are being added. You guys let me know what you're most excited for down in the comments section. But if I look at my notes list here, the iPadOS section has literally the least added new features. And some of the things are just kind of like, why didn't we have this before? For example, widgets being able to be added on wherever you want. Okay, Android's had that for such a long time. That's been a part of iOS before that, or the app library. Okay, I guess that's nice to have that as well, but it probably should have been there before. We have updates for multitasking, which is great, but it's not really a new feature. They kind of fixed it where before it was very confusing to use and sometimes it took multiple tries. Now they just made it easier and more intuitive to use, so it's not really a new feature. And then of course we have the notes feature, which I'm going to go in detail in our next video, and hopefully I'm going to download the beta version, but that's not really giving us anything really wanted with the M1 iPads to harness all that extra performance and capabilities. That's just making it easier and better on the software to use an iPad as an iPad. Apple also showed off other software in this section that applies to a lot of devices, not just the iPad, kind of like they wanted to make this a little bit longer for the iPad. And then they also showed off Swift being able to compile and update straight out of that, which is great, but people want Xcode on the iPad, and it doesn't seem like Apple is wanting to give it to us. And the same thing with Final Cut Pro. I would love it. So my whole thought with this iPad, once I got it, once I used it, just like a lot of you guys, is I don't really need a MacBook anymore. As soon as I get an update to iPadOS, where you can make it be more usable with external drives, make it work, remove some of those limits, software limitations for iPads, get us software that can actually utilize this crazy hardware, I will switch over. I have this crazy all-in-one device that is good for everything on the go. It's productive, you can do entertainment, play games, touchscreen on there, excellent machine, all in one, that's all I need now. But Apple obviously does not want us to use this as a MacBook replacement. And the proof of that is when they took this thing out and they showed off the update to where you can actually switch your cursor from your Mac and scroll it to an iPad that is sitting next to it, and then do your iPad things on the iPad and then bring it back into your Mac to do the Mac things, either the MacBook, or then you can bring your MacBook next to your iMac if you want a larger screen. So what Apple wants you to do is not replace your Mac with an iPad. They want you to buy this iPad, which this one right here is about $2,000 for this package. It goes even higher than that. And then they want you to buy a MacBook for when you need to do real things, like if you want to edit with Final Cut, you want to use Xcode and other programs, Logic, on the go. And then if you want to do it at home, buy another one, and we'll allow you to put all three next to each other and just move things from one to another. And that just has me thinking, wow, that is incredible. Is Apple ever going to make this the kind of machine that it should be with the hardware that's inside? Will the software ever catch up? Now, to me, after seeing that and knowing that we're not going to get another iPadOS update for another year, is it even worth having this device? Like I mentioned earlier, all the things I could do with this machine, I could do with a 2018 iPad Pro. Same keyboard, same capabilities, same new iPadOS with the notes feature. This hardware, this M1 chip, isn't being fully utilized. Even in gaming, in video exporting, it's not being fully utilized right now, and Apple is keeping it limited with their Files app and other features. So what's the point of having this machine? And I know a lot of people agreed. We're seeing tweets, people saying, hey, I'm returning my iPad. If I have this hardware for this much money I spent, but I can't really make the most of it, and I still need to keep my MacBook, there's no point to having it. And personally, and unfortunately, my return window closed on Friday. So for anybody that bought this at launch and got it right away, conveniently, Friday is when the return window closed. WWDC is Monday, and all of our hype waiting for this machine to become an actual pro machine where you can replace your MacBook and you can do everything on it, well, all of that was just crushed. And I think Apple just ruined the M1 iPad Pros. They're still great iPads, but they're not laptops. They're nowhere near what they could be. And I guess we're gonna have to wait even longer. And based on what Apple showed off, I don't know if they're ever gonna want this to be a MacBook replacement just by limiting the software. But you guys let me know what you think. Did Apple ruin the M1 iPad Pro, or is this still worth upgrading from your 2020 iPad Pro or 2018? Is this the machine that could do everything for you? Is it what you wanted with this new software, or were you hoping for more? I want to hear you guys' honest opinions. Now I'm going to do a video on the top features getting into that with iPadOS. So if you guys want to see that or our other videos on WWDC, click that circle above and you guys can help us reach our goal of 1 million subscribers before the end of the year. We would greatly appreciate it. And this has been Max, and I'll see you in the next video.